It's honestly been pretty hard to get a good read on Alabama this year. They faced no competition in 3 of their games, they struggled against a Texas team, and then they just most recently dominated an Arkansas team without their star quarterback and made things look easy. It'd be easy to say that Alabama is guaranteed to go to the SEC championship game this year and probably get to the playoff, but in my opinion, there's one problem that is holding the Crimson Tide back and could come back to bite them by the end of the year. It could be so costly that it ends their championship hopes early, and no, it's not Bryce Young being injured. In today's video, I want to talk about the 2022 Alabama team, go through how they've played so far, and we're going to talk about the one problem that's plaguing this team and how it could be fixed. But before we get started, we're on the road to 100K, so be sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like if you want to support today's video, let me know a player or topic I can cover next, and turn on post notifications so you never miss when I upload. Now, let's get started and talk about Alabama football. Let's do a quick recap on how Alabama got to this point. After winning the national championship in the 2020 season, Bama would have a new quarterback, new running back, and new receivers to throw the ball to in 2021. Bryce Young lived up to his 5-star status as he ended up winning the Heisman Trophy. Brian Robinson emerged as one of the best running backs in the country and got to hear his name called in the draft. Ohio State transfer Jamison Williams blew up, John Mechi stepped up, and Slade Bolden did what he always did. Most of those guys headed on to the NFL, but they would return Will Anderson and pick up a couple big-time transfers. Most notably, they grabbed an all-purpose player in Jamir Gibbs, got Jermaine Burton from Georgia, and grabbed a speedy receiver by the name of Tyler Harrell from Louisville. With all those different pieces returning, the Tide were obviously going to be hyped up this year. In week 1, they killed Utah State, before they would barely survive against Texas. If it weren't for a late missed tackle by Texas, that game could have gone differently. After that, they would come home and destroy both UL Monroe and Vanderbilt before they had what some thought would be their biggest test of the year against number 20 Arkansas. While Arkansas did make a late comeback in the 3rd quarter, the Tide put them away in the 4th quarter and won 49-26. Unfortunately, they would lose Bryce Young, but Jalen Milroe came in and did a spectacular job. I'm not at all worried about the quarterback spot, and honestly, Milroe's good enough to start anyways. So you may be asking, with the Tide being 5-0 right now and doing well with their backup quarterback, what on earth could be the problem for the Tide? We're going to diagnose it. It's the receiver spot. If players don't step up soon, it could be a long year for Bama, and they won't be able to get by on what they're doing for much longer. Let's first meet all these receivers. Ever since Nick Saban has taken over Alabama, the Tide always have those 2 or 3 wide receivers who are without a doubt go-to players. Last year, it was Jamison Williams, John Mechi, and Slade Bolden. The first one, Jamison Williams, was a big-time recruit coming out of St. Louis and would go to Ohio State before going back to Bama and having a breakout season. He caught 79 passes for 1,572 yards, while averaging nearly 20 yards a catch and 15 touchdowns. He was a Blitnikoff finalist, the #1 playmaker for this Tide offense, and eventually became a 1st-round pick. John Mechi was also another big-time receiver. Last year, he led the team in catches as he caught 96 passes for 1,142 yards and 8 touchdowns. Just like Jamison, he would suffer a late injury, but the upside was still so high on Mechi, he was taken early by the Houston Texans. That last guy was Slade Bolden. He was not your typical Bama recruit, but he earned his way up the depth chart and caught 42 passes for 408 yards and 3 touchdowns. He had a couple of undrafted deals, but Slade was a glue guy and a leader for that team. Replacing all 3 of those guys was going to be difficult, and the first answer to that problem was going to be Jamir Gibbs. While becoming an All-American at Georgia Tech, Gibbs caught passes, ran the ball, and returned kicks, so he could do a little bit of everything. Bama was also known for using their running backs. Brian Robinson was 4th in receiving last year, and Najee Harris was 3rd in receiving in 2020. It looked like both Jamir Gibbs and Jace McClellan would naturally catch more passes out of the backfield, but they had also need their 2 or 3 guys to be ahead of him. One of the first things Nick Saban did was grab 2 big-time transfers from the portal. It worked with Jamison, so why wouldn't it work again? The first one was Jermaine Burton. Coming out of Calabasas High School in California, Burton was the number 15 receiver, a top 100 player, and a 4-star recruit in the class of 2020. He went to Georgia, where in his first 2 years, he caught nearly 50 passes for 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. The offense Georgia ran did not help Burton at all, and with his immense talent, he thought going over to Alabama would give him a better chance at going to the pros. So far this year, he's been pretty disappointing. He's caught 13 passes for 169 yards with only 2 touchdowns, and both of those are from short distance, and he's been lacking that big play ability. The second transfer they brought in was a kid by the name of Tyler Harrell. Coming out of Columbus High School in Miami, Florida, Harrell was not a typical blue chip. In fact, he was only a 3-star recruit, the number 135 receiver, and barely a top 1,000 player in the class of 2018. Harrell would go to Louisville, where he'd play a little bit as a freshman, but then would miss 2 straight seasons before catching 18 passes for 523 yards and 6 touchdowns last year. With how much Louisville depended on their running game, the fact that Harrell made all these big-time plays was insane. he averaged 29 yards per catch and was a big play waiting to happen. He would transfer to Bama, but so far he has not played yet. That is because he suffered an injury, but what I've heard through the grapevine is that Harrell practiced this week and he might play tomorrow night against Texas A&M. I was really excited to see what this guy would do in the offense. I think he has a better chance of becoming that star than Burton does. Okay, they obviously grabbed 2 transfers, but what about some of those big-time freshmen they signed? The first one is a player by the name of Isaiah Bond. Coming in of Buford, Georgia, Bond was the number 2 athlete and the 52nd best player in the class of 2022. For a true freshman, he's been pretty decent this year, as he has 6 catches for 112 yards without a touchdown. He's one of those guys that they will depend upon in the future, but for now he's supposed to play that reserve role and he's doing his job. The next one is Prentiss, and he is a homegrown kid from Calera High School in Alabama, and he was the number 12 receiver, a 4-star player, and the 78th best recruit in the country. Prentiss actually impressed the coaching staff so much that he was named a starter. However, he has not exactly shown that he's deserved being a starter so far. His route running and instincts could definitely use some fine-tuning. He's had a couple of drops, but he still has 15 catches for 211 yards and a touchdown, and it looks like he's a guy who will break out in the future. The third guy is Aaron Anderson. He went to Edna Carr in New Orleans, Louisiana, and he flipped from LSU to Bama. He was a number 4 receiver, a borderline 5-star recruit, and the 35th best player in the class of 2022. He was compared to Jalen Waddle coming out of high school, but unfortunately, he has dealt with an injury so far. Just like Harrell, he has apparently been practicing lately, and maybe we'll see him playing soon. Kendrick Law. He was the lowest rated, but coming out of Captain Shreve High School in Louisiana, Law was the number 3 athlete, a 4-star recruit, and the 86th best player in the class of 22. So far at Bama, Law has done exactly what is expected of him, as he has 2 catches for 22 yards, but I see him as a developmental player who needs time to get better. He's done exactly what he should do, and that is to learn. I also forgot to mention Shaz Preston, who is a top 60 player, top 10 receiver, and also hailed from Louisiana, and he has yet to take a snap this year. Now let's take a look at the players who returned from last year's squad, who many believed were going to step up. First was Jojo Earl. Just like every other Bama recruit, he was a 4-star out of the state of Texas, and so far in the year has 1 catch for 22 yards and a touchdown. He recently returned from injury, and maybe Earl will become that go-to guy. Tao Jones-Bell was a 4-star from Florida, and he has 1 catch for 5 yards. I never really expected him to play a lot, and he's one of those players that I think will be in the portal soon. Just like Jones-Bell, Christian Leary was another big-time recruit, and he only has 1 catch for 6 yards. Those two have obviously fallen behind on the depth chart, and they'd probably make great pieces at another school and would probably star there. I don't expect either of those two to break out. 3 players that everyone was looking to take those top 3 spots include Cameron Latu, Jacory Brooks, and Trey Holden. Let's first start with Latu. He was a converted defensive player who actually beat out Jaleel Billingsley for the tight end job last year and showed immense flash. He caught 26 passes for 410 yards and 8 touchdowns, and he was reliable, made plays, and scored the ball. He was technically the leading catcher coming back, but this year he's been disappointing. He has 10 catches for 106 yards without a touchdown, and they're going to need him to step up, or else younger players might get his spot and his draft stock might fall. Trey Holden has been in the Alabama program for a couple of years now, and I think he has done his part. So far he's the leading receiver, as he has 17 catches for 228 yards and 4 touchdowns, and is averaging nearly 14 yards per catch. He's been the most consistent receiver on the team, and he's definitely a solid and dependable receiver, as he'll get yards and move the sticks, but he hasn't shown that big play ability. He looks like a good number 2 option. The guy who was supposed to be the number 1 option was Jacory Brooks. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of IMG Academy, and Brooks needs to step it up. He had an insane end of the year last year, as he had over 100 yards and 2 big touchdowns against Auburn, and Brooks was naturally looked at as the next man up. So far through 5 games, he's only caught 10 passes for 179 yards and 2 scores. Right now, he could be that guy, but he's lacking that consistency. Right now, the best receiver on the team has pretty much been Jamir Gibbs. He leads the team in catches, is second in touchdowns, and is always having the ball in his hand. This is an absolute problem for Alabama, as this is not how it's supposed to be. They are loaded with so much talent on the roster, and their running back should never be the top guy there. You can only continue to have this balanced approach for so long before some team is going to get them. But how on earth are they going to fix it? I actually think it's quite simple. Trey Holden and Jamir Gibbs need to continue doing what they're doing, and both Jacory Brooks and Jermaine Burton need to step up their game. Burton has 2 years of experience at Georgia and should be playing better than he has. Jacory Brooks is a 5-star recruit, and he proved he could do it last year, so him and Burton need to step up and become those top 2 options. From there, you're going to need Holden to continue doing exactly what he's done. Latu needs to become more of a red zone threat. And then I'd like to see the big playability out of Tyler Harrell. Harrell will play at some point this season, but I think he's the missing dimension to this offense. He has a chance to be Jamison Williams 2.0 with his speed, and if Bama can get the deep ball going, they'll be back in business. Right now, the receiver room has been slacking throughout the year, and while they've done enough to win games, it's not going to last, and that is the one major flaw I see in this team. It doesn't matter whether Ty Simpson, Jalen Milroe, or Bryce Young is throwing the ball. Those receivers are talented enough to have big seasons, and they're going to get that offense going, which will ultimately propel Bama to where they need to be. I'm a little bit concerned right now, but not in the long run. What do you guys think though? If you're a Bama fan, what has gone wrong with this receiver room? Who do you expect to be better? And how do you think the team is going to do? If you're an outsider, how do you think Bama will do this season? What's another topic, player, or situation I can take a look at in my next video? And be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.